oftentimes, more often than not recently, appreciated for the unique insight that we bring as faith community to a lot of these topics. One of the other issues that I wanted to highlight just in terms of, again, being able to make a difference through the legislative process, through the practicing of your faith and really making your faith a part of your involvement in the process of government is in regards to the death penalty. As I'm sure most of you know, Colorado is still one of the states that has the death penalty. It's legal in Colorado. And there's been a movement to try and repeal the death penalty in Colorado. And the church has been one of the most outspoken advocates against use of the death penalty. And over the course of time, we've made some good strides. We haven't gotten there yet, but we're hopeful that we will. And people will say, well, you're not going to change people's minds about this. This is a hard and fast issue. People are either pro-death penalty, they're anti-death penalty. They don't change their mind. And one of the stories that I like to tell, because he will never tell the story, is in regards to Archbishop Chaput, who was the former Archbishop of Denver. He's now in Philadelphia. And when he was here in Denver, he had a very close relationship with Governor Hickenlooper, who was mayor of Denver. And they used to meet occasionally, have dinner, talk about issues and whatnot. Governor Hickenlooper will fully admit that when he was mayor of Denver, he was 100% in favor of the death penalty. He believed it was the right thing. He believed it was the right policy for Colorado. He had no intention of ever changing his position on it. Fast forward about 2 years after he had met Archbishop Chaput, and after his first term of being governor, he came out very, very publicly and now tells the story about how Archbishop Chaput was the sole reason behind him going from being pro-death penalty to completely anti-death penalty and hoping to get the law repealed at some point while he's governor. I think that's a pretty amazing, and when you listen to Governor Hickenlooper talk about it, he talks about it from a perspective, he will fully admit he's not a man of faith. He doesn't attend services regularly at any sort of denominational church at all. But he said it was the first time that somebody sat down with him when he would meet with Archbishop Chaput and walk him through the New Testament and talk to him about forgiveness and the notion of being able to repair the wrong that you've done in society. And I thought that was a really amazing story to see that here was a man who they didn't share a common faith, they didn't share a lot of necessarily common political beliefs, and yet through their friendship and through Archbishop Chaput being able to sit down and have conversations with the now governor, he was able to change his mind. And he didn't use any sort of coercion or odd tactics that, I'll do this if you do this kind of maneuvering that I think we think of when we think of politics. But really it was just opening up the scripture and going through scripture with Governor Hickenlooper. Again, a man who wasn't necessarily all that open to having that done, but he had the ability to be open to what Archbishop Chaput was saying, and Archbishop Chaput is credited with changing his mind on the death penalty. And so I think it's a fairly significant thing to know about, and also to be sort of inspired by and encouraged by that. For as divisive and sometimes dirty as politics is, and it definitely is, there are also sort of rays of light that shine through, and we do have the ability to really make a positive policy impact on the state and really make our voice heard on a lot of really, really important issues. What I like to tell people about getting involved in terms of, I always hear the regular, I'm too busy, it doesn't matter, all of that kind of stuff. And so what I like to tell people is that's fine. I'm not asking that you are going to be up at the Capitol tomorrow talking to your legislators, but sign up for our network, get the alerts, find out what the Church of Colorado is involved in, what issues we're following, and if you choose to get involved, wonderful. If not, I say get the alerts anyways, so you at least know maybe a little bit more about what's happening in Colorado from a political perspective. And then also, the most important thing, if you don't do any of that, if none of that is of interest to you, please, please, please make sure you're registered to vote. It's one of the most important. Colorado, unfortunately, during the last election cycle, there was some polling that was done after the last presidential election in Colorado, and it polled people of all faiths, of every denomination, and it asked them to delineate whether they attended services regularly, and by regularly they meant more than 3 times a month. So they had thousands of people that responded, and of the people that responded from the faith community attending services on a regular basis, 50% of them were registered to vote in the state of Colorado. Of the 50% that were registered to vote, during the 2012 presidential election, only half of the 50% actually voted. So there's a huge gap when it comes to the faith community and their willingness to do something really just as simple as voting. And that's something that we can all be very actively involved in terms of encouraging our friends, our family, our neighbors to make sure just a simple, are you registered to vote? It's a very easy process in Colorado. You can do everything online in terms of registering to vote, and your ballots in Colorado will come straight to you in the mail. You don't have to go anywhere to vote. It's a pretty streamlined process, and I think the state tries to make it as easy as possible for all of us. So there really is no excuse. We will be soon getting into, as we already have, a lot of presidential electioneering, and 2016 will be right around the corner. So please, please, please make sure that you are registered to vote. If any of you have interest in being involved in helping other parishioners get registered to vote, that is something that the church can be involved in, and I actively encourage all parishes across the state to have voter registration drives in their parishes, and it's something, again, very easy that you can do, that you can organize here at the cathedral or whatever parish you might be actively involved in. Please, please, please make sure that that happens and that you are. And if you're not sure if you're registered to vote, I can help you make sure you are. It's just a really important thing that I think a lot of us take for granted. And after the polling that came out, that really demonstrated the need for people to get more involved and to vote, especially people of faith in Colorado. I think that more than likely you're probably every Sunday at Mass sitting next to people that there's a good chance that they either aren't registered to vote or they didn't vote in the last presidential election. So that's something that is simple and easy that we can all change. And it's a very easy way to make, again, a difference in how our politics work and how our government works and the policies that we are going to support or not support or promote. It is vitally important that we get involved. And I've also brought some information about the last election in terms of materials that we provided to the parishes around the state about the issues that the church is involved in, our position on them, and how to think about the issues as you go into the voting booth, and how important they should be to you as you consider who to vote for, regardless of what office they're running for. So I will stop there for right now and take any questions that any of you may have, or thoughts, comments.